Good morning, beautiful souls, or grand rising, however you'd like to say it. We are excited to be on here a little bit earlier, hopefully, kind of. I think we have an earlier audience typically, but really excited to talk about today. We're going to be pulling from the Gene Keys again, just so you know, because it's such a great book, well written. Highly recommend that you purchase it. It's super helpful as guidance. You can just kind of use it intuitively, open up the pages if you have a question. And typically, it's spot on when you read it. You're like, okay, this can help move things um, and give you some insight. So, really excited to do the Gene Keys. Also, follow us on Instagram at Women of Consciousness. You can follow us, go to our website, womenofconsciousness.com, and all of our social media platforms are there. You can follow us, see what we're up to. We will be restructuring the website, and that is really awesome because you guys will get a better idea of what we do. We work with groups, we work with companies, and we work with women's circles, which is really kind of cool. So, as we update the website, please go there. You can see the changes that we'll be making. They're coming soon. And you can get involved in our Goddess Circle. I believe it's August 16th is the date.
Yes, third Friday in
The
August.
third Friday of August. And so for women, if you want to go, we will also be having a Goddess retreat. And that's kind of nice. It'll be a virtual retreat, and that you can find online as well. We'll be posting it very soon so that you can sign up. Okay, so let's get into it. So this morning, Pam and I were doing some breath work and then decided to pull some goddess cards. And I would say, can you actually read the goddess card that was pulled, the warrior one? Because I just feel like it's such a powerful card. And I particularly feel like the warrior. I know I'm the warrior. And I think I'm at least I'm overcoming the wounded warrior part of myself, which is good because
Mm.
nobody wants me to go to war. Everybody thinks I'm so sweet until so okay, so Pam, go ahead and just maybe read what the card.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. So it's from the Dark Goddess deck. And we are just talking about like sisterhood and the kind of this distrust and what is it? And this card came flying out. And so the Morgan, an archetypal warrior of Celtic origin, she's a complex goddess, blunt, rough, violent, and has the ability to take animal form: a crow, a raven, a cow, and a wolf. She was worshipped most as the battle raven, determining whether you walked off the field of battle or were carried off upon your shield. And then the guidance just says, your hackles are up, and as though ravens and crows caw and circle above you, war has been declared and battle must commence. Having survived all that you have endured, you have built a strong fortress around you for protection. This defense system is so firmly in place that you are ready to fight at a moment's notice. Like the goddess of battle herself, you have become a blunt, rough, and sometimes violent warrior when it comes to defending your honor. And those who are close to you now fear your wrath. When the Morgan appears, a battle cry goes up, but she will show you how to choose your fight carefully. With wisdom as your tool, as you reclaim your sovereignty. Don't be afraid of a little drama. Allow others to see that you mean business. You can do this in a kind and loving way, but remain true to yourself. Be not ruled by others, but appreciate your allies who have your best interests at heart.
Yeah, and that's exactly where I'm at. It's just so crazy. Like you pull the card, I was like, God, you're talking to me. That's exactly where I'm at. I realize the shields that I've put up and and that's part of it too. It's like in the warrior spirit, it's like anything that is gonna call to battle, you're ready for it. But that not everything needs to be a battle.
Right.
That there's discernment and there's the wisdom that comes through for the warrior at a certain point where it's almost like, well, is this negotiable? Can we negotiate or can we? And a lot of it is held in, I guess, the king of swords, queen of swords, right?
Mm-hmm.
They can function very differently. But I think it's paired with that because you can go to full on battle and cut shit out. You know what I mean? Cut
Right.
everyone off, cut everything off, all that kind of stuff. And I have. And that's a tool that I have in my back pocket that I will do if I have to. But not everything needs to be done that way. And I think in the as the wounded warrior growing up, that's what I did. I think it confused a lot of people, right? Where I would just totally sever everything.
Yeah.
Um, and then now it's become more of the wisdom that leads me to be
Yeah.
able to allow the wisdom to guide me and make discernment about what needs to be cut out or what doesn't. And maybe sometimes things don't need to be fully cut out, but certain parts do. So it's
Mhm.
and then the negotiation happens or whatever. But as a person, it is battling for our sovereignty. I think that is the biggest thing. It's the sovereignty. And in the gene key, which is kind of funny because the city in it is liberation, right?
Mm.
Um, and then dynamism, right? And then provocation. So the shadows provocation gift is dynamism, city is liberation. So it kind of goes through the gene keys, it kind of just goes up from the shadow to the gift to the city. And the 39 gene key is what I'm talking from. It's the tension of transcendence, which, you know, talks about the warrior.
Mhm.
And so that's what I am. I am a warrior, and it's really hard not to want to protect every part of myself, um, and step up in battle. That's been my life. You know what I mean? And that's how I've operated. And so it's very hard for me to trust people. It's very hard for me to um not have my defense mechanisms up all the time. So, but I think the part of it, and this is what I liked about this gene key, it was a perfect thing, right? I open up and I'm like, of course, right? Of course. Um, is that it talks about using our wisdom. So that's a big piece of it too. So even though there are so many incredible different flavors, right? It says the human genetic matrix. There are relatively few of them governs humanity. So they're saying that this is kind of the key is program in 38th key holds true unique place in the collective cosmology. Above all other archetypes, these two represent the myth of the warrior. So the 38th key, as which I probably should go back to, and the 39th key. So it is the myth of the warrior. It is the archetype of the warrior. Um, so um, so we talk about like how we even look today to those archetypes, right? In our what we do in our culture when we're sitting in our living rooms watching TV, all that kind of stuff, right? It holds that captivity. We want to watch the warrior. That is like right? Everything is surrounded by that. So it is an archetype. It's really important. Um, so it says, oh, well, we see in the due course why we aspire so strongly to attain the highest frequency of the 39 gene key. Um, it's equally potent, lower frequency. The 39 shadow are extremely sinister as they currently hold the majority of humanity within their thrall. It's responsible for maintaining planetary vibration dominated by single quality violence. So we
Mhm.
even are seeing this as like at the collective level, right? This like
Absolutely.
violence. Yeah. Um, and that's what it shows up as. But there's some unique qualities, I think, of the warrior that really help others to transcend as well, because they'll just pierce through the BS and just like give it to you the way it is, and it's not comfortable. It's just not. And I know I carry that part of me. I'll just pierce through you. I'm not gonna
Mhm.
BS. You know what I mean? I'm not about playing games, and that's part of the warrior spirit. So it's like, holy crap, yes, I just I know that that's part of where I'm at, right? And so those
Mhm.
other individuals, I like this too. It says like the 39 shadow is like a cobra waiting to strike, which is really crazy because that's kind of how I felt. My third eye was just like this cobra, right? It's just like it'll just choom, it'll attack. So I'm like, whoa, girl, calm down.
Easy killer.
Easy killer. Shh, calm. Um, This violence is personal, and when aimed precisely, its target seldom misses. We
Yeah.
most often see its manifestation in our personal relationships.
Yeah.
Um, so it says, this is the shadow of provocation, or in everyday language, button pushing.
Mm.
So it's the people that
Yeah.
push the buttons, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Have you ever wondered how it is that your partner, parent, or child knows the precise code, tone, and word that really provokes your anger? Violence comes in many forms, and it doesn't have to be physical. So emotional violence is acoustic. So then they talk about kind of how the tones change the way that they are, and and it's true. Tone
Mm.
has such a huge um, play on this, and the way that we interact. So tone as well can, you know how
Yeah.
it is. Someone could
Absolutely.
say, yeah, they could say things in so like,
Oh,
how's your day going? Like, how's your day going? Or it could be
yeah.
like, how's your day going? This is like changes the whole dynamic, right? So tone
Absolutely.
is a big thing that can start it. As we've seen throughout the book, the genes can adapt, even though they cannot easily be altered. So, your attitude shifts, so your frequency shifts. If you focus on the negative aspects, then the frequency drops. If you focus on the positive, it lifts. And it
Mhm.
depends on the octave you're tuned into. So attitude is the sense, in a sense, is always acoustic. Which I like that line. I guess that is true. Your attitude does come up through the vibrational tone that you use when, I guess, when you're trying to communicate something. So that
Right.
kind of makes sense. Uh-huh.
Nothing's worse than
Um,
a teenager's tone.
I know. Honestly, as soon as I read that, I was thinking of your son. So I was like, I wonder if Pam's thinking of that right now. I did.
Oh,
Yeah,
yeah.
I
Even
know.
my
I
daughter, when she was younger, it's like, why do you guys have to have that kind of tone? And they don't hear it. They don't understand it. They don't feel the negativity that comes with it. They're just like, this is who I am. I'm just talking and expressing myself. But as the receiver, it's harsh and it's cruel and it hurts. And it's definitely like tone of voice matters.
Oh, it totally does. I had to learn that over time. So I
Yeah.
think I was one of those who was like, what am I saying that's wrong? Like, I'm like saying the truth. And it's like, yeah, the way you're saying it and the
Yeah.
tone that you're using, I'm like, oh, well, I guess I need to figure that out. And I have. I worked really hard to kind of figure that out. But some things do need that tone. Some things do, just depending on what it is, right? But
Right.
situational knowing, you know. And like you said, teenagers don't know that. They're just
No.
like, whatever.
Yeah.
I've dealt with my sister's teenagers, so we were very close. So, ugh, that's like a oof, yuck. Okay, so that is not a fun time. I'm like, damn, my parents must have hated me at that time. Um, the provoker. Okay, so then it talks about the provoker. The provoker and the provoked are simply playing out an age-old chess game of abuser and victim. Most
Mhm.
of us play both roles at different times with different people. Programming partner 39 shadow is the 38 shadow of struggle. It is a genetic law that the moment you react violently, emotionally, or physically to an emotional provocation, you are engaging with the energy of struggle and effort. In this instance, the violence is aimed personally and directly at a single person. This is different from anger that simply is released in more healthy way, without being just directed towards anyone in particular.
Yeah.
And I think that's a great distinction for warrior, for people who are dealing with that. It's like
Yeah.
vengeful if you're like aiming it at one particular person, where anger can be dispersed. And I understand that because I never wanted to harm anybody. My thing was, how do I release this anger? And I put all of that into creative works. And it's funny because it talks about creativity in here
Mm.
and how it ignites creativity. And that's what I did.
Mm.
So it was like, I'm going to release my anger, into creativity, or movement, if you will. So I'm
Yeah.
like, I'm going to go work out. I'm going to do these things, and I would release it in a very healthy way. Um, but if someone's not able to do that, or they don't have an outlet to release that,
Right.
then it could become vengeance, and that's not ever good. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? I don't know what you're going to get with that. So,
Right.
um,
And
I always say,
listening,
mhm,
I
go
was
ahead.
just gonna say, like listening to you read this, I feel like I'm getting a better picture of even my own personal experiences because I don't feel like my shield was always down when I was younger, very
Mhm,
sensitive.
mhm,
I think I felt, I know I've talked about this before, like feeling like I was really safe with my father who protected
mhm,
me. So,
mhm,
right,
mhm,
that inner masculine of protect yourself, like my shield was down, um, which led to, like, I hate to say the word of victimization, but there was a lot of times where I felt I was an easy target. And like in my old marriage or whatever, my
mhm,
ex marriage, whatever, I don't know. There was a lot of emotional abuse. At points, there was physical abuse for sure. Um, but I remember getting so angry because I was always shut down. Like those buttons were pushed, like
mhm.
he would just say things to hurt me on purpose. He even now still does it, but I have blocked him. Um, but yeah, so it was like I didn't have a healthy outlet. I remember just kind of self-harm as a way,
Mhm,
like being in so
mhm,
much pain and so much
mhm.
anger that I just kind of did self-harm in my
Yeah,
early 20s. Because I just didn't know. I didn't know how to release this frustration and this suffering that was happening. And I feel like my warrior was just wounded and kind of weak and didn't know how to find its own strength. And
mhm, mhm.
luckily, um, through more toxic relationships and people that felt like vengeance was, a beautiful thing to do. I've definitely, again, had to work through those myths and
Yes.
narratives and recognize like I'm not a villain and I'm not a
Mhm,
victim.
mhm.
Um, and know how to have that shield up and know how to be that warrior, protect myself now, cut those cords, and do what's best for me. So yeah, it's really interesting when you start looking at the
Mhm.
archetypal energy and how it kind of goes from this wounded shadow element into these gifts. And with that, like you are transformed as you transcend.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it is crazy, and yeah, not having your shield means you weren't ready for battle, so you just didn't
No.
have the skill to be
I
able to battle.
Yeah, I'm not one for conflict. Like, I do not
Yeah,
want to fight with people. I don't want confrontation. Like, I don't know if it's just a Pisces kind of thing. In some ways, I know like that for that zodiac sign. I know it's pretty common that we tend to just swim away. um, and I don't want to fight people. Like, I'm not trying to bring anger and violence towards others. So it's been something very difficult in my own life to kind of overcome and navigate. But now I feel this very beautiful sense of empowerment where I will cut your head off. I will, like that Cali energy, like you're talking about with the swords, right? Cut cords, remove you, the Queen of Hearts or
yep,
whatnot,
yep.
off with their heads.
Yeah,
Because
no,
I'm
it
not going to
is.
allow anyone to treat me that way again.
Yeah, and conflict
Yeah.
is good. Battle
Yeah.
is good. You
Yeah.
have to battle. Like, there is in other words, you'll remain the victim forever if you don't.
Right.
You have to face it, right? So it's like facing the battle, which is me facing all these battles all the time. You know what I mean? I think I've come to a point of exhaustion with just the stuff I'm going through. And I feel like I already know exactly kind of where I'm at with this particular gene key in terms of my own transcendence because
Mm.
I, on the other hand, I didn't victimize people. I probably did. I mean, I guess I maybe showed up as an abuser, um, in more of a, um, I think I was the victim of my father is where I was victimized the most. And then he's the reason why I had so much armor because he was so violent, right? He was so, um, mentally abusive. And I had to learn how to, um, put that armor up so that I wouldn't get hit all the time, you know what I mean? And a lot of it was just kind of strategic, and that's probably why I'm so strategic as well because I had to figure out strategies to maneuver him and not to ignite a battle in him so that I wasn't receiving all of that violence from him, that emotional violence and stuff. So or abuse from him. So, but I think beyond that, I think because of that, I probably was not the victim of anyone else. Like, I always tell people, "You don't scare me." The only person that's ever scared me in my life is my father. Oh, and Freddy Krueger, but that's because it was in my dreams. But and I'm not scared anymore. But my dad, but my dad, but my father, he, you know, he's the one who scared me, and I was frightened by him. And
Mm,
so there was nobody else who could frighten me the way he did.
yeah.
And so anybody else that came after me, I was like, "You're nothing." You know what I mean? And I think
Right.
that was why, I had so much armor put up, for myself, for other reasons, but I think with it was my dad more than anything in terms of
Yeah.
that, and the anger that would feel. I didn't wanna victimize people, so I self-sabotage. I think I focused that on all of myself, and I self-sabotage, and I do it a lot,
Mm,
relationships, with all everything, you know what I mean? That's
right.
just part of my narrative, um, and it's sad, but I mean, it's the truth. That's
Right.
just the truth of the situation, but I'm learning in, like, as we go further, how to transcend that, but so I think, yeah, you're right, you will become the victim or you will become the abuser. In this case, I can't say that I haven't maybe been an abuser in terms of my words. Like, I can be very, you know when I was younger, I would say
Mm,
crazy, but I ended up abusing myself more than anything. You know what I
mm,
mean? I think that's
yeah.
where I redirected it all internally, which is, if you can imagine, it's not good, right?
Right.
Learning to love myself and that's where the drill sergeant would come in and be like, "Roar." And I'm like, okay, yeah, you just can't do that anymore.
Yeah.
Um, so yeah, we do kind of fall into that. So battle is good, but we have to learn the balance and when to battle. So the
Right.
power of the shadow of the human being lies in our transcendence to take things personally. So we do. The astonishing reason for this is that we think we exist as individuals, whereas in fact we are quantum patterns in an ever-changing web of energy. The next time someone provokes you emotionally, try to understand what really just happened to you. If you reduce it down to essentials, all that happened was someone resonated some speech codes by means of their vocal cords. And this simple collection of tones caused you to react in a violent, unconscious, emotional manner. The old days, they would have called that other person a wizard or an exert to exert such control over you.
Mm,
And I think that's it. We just kind of give our power away.
right.
Um,
Absolutely.
and I'm learned that's another thing I've learned is just how to
Yeah.
not. I mean, I'm really good at that actually. People start going crazy. I just go silent. I'm like,
Yeah.
okay, have your moment. It's your stuff. Just go ahead and have the moment you need to have.
Right. It's like
You
a
know what I
child
mean?
having a tantrum. You just wait it out.
I do. I do. I'm
Yeah.
like, I'm gonna wait it out, and then when you're finished, we can talk about it.
Yep.
So, in light of the above, all violence can be understood in an acoustic field, which individuals react automatically and personally to speech codes according to preconditioned patterns.
Mhm.
Um, in other words, violence is an addiction for most people on the planet, which is why we're endlessly watch it on our television screens. Um, so, um, even so, most of us feel that we have very little to do, with the world news or many, atrocities going on in the world around us. Um, the deepest and most shocking truth is that every time we either provoke or provoked by someone else in an emotionally violent manner, we are propagating the world energy field of violence and co-creating these very news headlines. So there you go. Every time we provoke or provoked by someone else in an emotional, violent manner. So whenever there's violence there, we're just kind of doing the same thing. So it's kind of, I think part of it's just like, okay, how, and I'm pretty much past this. I have to like step away and understand what's going on with me. I'm not just going to attack. And
Right.
I've never been one to just attack. Like, I don't just attack, right? I think that's the Taurus energy in me. I'll wait things out. But if I do attack, you don't want to be in the same spot. You
Mm.
just wanna run, like, everybody just runs. There was a I don't know if I talked about it on here, it's like this video of, like it's funny because like, they talk about the lion, like the Leo, right, being, like,
Yep.
the supercharged one, and there was a video of this lion charging after the bull, and then finally the bull just turned around on the lion and looked at it, and then the lion started to back up, and I started laughing because it's my sister's a Leo, right? And it's kinda that's how the battles are. So, like, eventually, when the bull's had enough and it turns around and looks at you, it's like, "Yeah, you better back up."
Yeah.
And this is exactly what happened in nature, which is totally hilarious, right? Because the bull's like, "I'm gonna full charge at you right now." And the lion's like, "Ah, I think I'm gonna back it up." And if we see it in in the signs, but that's something you don't want, and something I don't want is to be full force.
Right.
So that, that does happen, with individuals. So, it's kind of like, where am I individually?
Mm.
It's that self-reflection before I even engage in any kind of that kind of communication, and I have to regulate the nervous system before I start.
Right.
Otherwise, you know, but the reality is I'll just exit the situation, and I'll take a lot of time to self-reflect before I say what I need to say. Otherwise, it's gonna be full force, full charge, full probably violence and war and God knows what.
Yeah.
And that's never good. So,
Yeah.
I'm not gonna do that. No. Um, let's see. All patterns held at the low frequency trap the human life force deep within your body. Um, so that you're not breathing deeply. So deep breathing is good.
Mm.
Um, so
Mm.
it says when you do not breathe fully, you deplete your energy and reduce your capacities. So it honestly, and it says that this shadow is fatigue. So one of the sure signs is fatigue.
Mhm.
So and another thing is people who lack dynamism in their life are people who have allowed themselves to feel trapped in some way. And it's such a true thing. The irony is that the solution does not lie in changing their routine, but changing their attitude. When your
Mm.
attitude changes, then your outer life begins to reflect. If you
Mhm.
just change your outer circumstances without changing your attitude, you simply end up feeling trapped again. So
Mm.
the trap, the trapped piece is a big part of it. It's like you
Yeah.
said, you felt like that caged animal.
Yeah.
That's exactly what it is. It's that
Yeah.
trapped
Yeah.
energy. The world is feeling that. Let's like me look at the collective right now. They
Yeah.
feel trapped in their 9 to 5. They feel trapped, they're like feeling like caged animals right now, most of the Western world.
Yeah.
And they can't get breath. So imagine if you thought about it like this, we're all feeling caged by this system. Once they've had enough and they're let out of the cage, what kind of violence and chaos do you think is going to happen?
Right, that's why there's a history of revolutions and
I
uprisings.
know, exactly, and we're at the precipice of that, right? It's like we're
Yeah.
right there. It's
Yeah.
like, especially here in the US, it's like that's why I say, "Oh god, civil war, whatever," is like,
Mhm.
do you know what I mean? Because people
Yep.
are feeling too caged, like, you can't we're not meant to be caged,
Right.
and
Absolutely.
we go crazy when we feel like we are, and so that I mean, I think that's what we're seeing. I think that's the biggest thing that we're seeing right now.
Yep.
So so yeah, so there's that. So, um, insight is that okay, so the 39 shadow is that it influences the shape of the human body. The shape of your body is primarily determined by the way you metabolize and eat. So that's kind of cool because this can give you insight to your whole, body. When you operate at low frequency, you cannot metabolize your food properly, so you feel hungrier. However, it is your spirit that is hungry rather than your body. No matter how much food you eat, you will never quite feel satiated.
Mm.
And kind of makes, now that I'm thinking about this on the collective level, it kind of makes sense why we have so many unhealthy people in America.
Yeah.
And it does say that here. Oh yeah, it does say, it says, your spirit is actually hungry. It's an urgent need to express your inner beauty.
Yeah,
Thus,
hungry
the
for
world reflects
creativity.
the shadow through it says it expresses the shadow through eating patterns. The West, one of the greatest new health problems is obesity, whereas the Eastern is malnutrition.
Yeah,
So
it's the
they're outward
scales out of
reflections.
balance.
That's right.
Completely out of balance.
Which is
Yeah,
crazy. You're just eating and eating and eating because you
right,
can't express
right.
the things.
Which makes
Wow.
sense because there's a lot of emotional, right? Emotional
Oh, yeah.
eaters.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Tons of emotional eaters, and it's really hard, I think, and it's funny because my sister and I talk about it all the time. She's like, "No," because I eat really healthy. I, cook all my meals. I rarely eat out. It's rare. But she tells me, "These people are eating McDonald's in their car in the parking lot." And I'm like, "Really?" And I freak out because I forget people actually still eat this stuff. They eat
Oh,
McDonald's, they eat Burger King, they eat all this stuff. And I'm like, "Really? You guys
yeah,
are really." And it's like, yeah, people still eat that stuff. They're still in business. And then, I haven't had that kind of stuff and I don't even know how long it's been. That's how many years it's been.
yeah,
It's a very, 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 very long time. And so for me, it's like, wow, but it's a grab and go. It's a quick thing, and we're eating our emotions and we're addicted to all these kind of foods that are not good for our body. And
right.
it's all because we feel trapped and we can't be creative.
And that fast-paced lifestyle.
And the fast-paced lifestyle,
Yeah.
yeah.
As a
Um,
vegetarian, like, luckily there's not much for me. So I don't go to fast food places at all. Um,
yeah,
I agree with you. I just like the Shamrock Shake like once a year
yeah,
from
yeah.
McDonald's. I will
Uh,
say that's my guilty pleasure treat just one time a year.
yeah. And, even if you did hit more, is it right, wrong, good, or bad? I think it's what the circumstances that we're dealing with right now.
Yeah,
You know what I mean? It's like people
absolutely.
are doing this, and I'm like,
Right.
I just am oblivious to some things sometimes. You would think I was naive. I'm like, how can I be naive? I just live in a bubble, I think, and I'm like, oh, my universe, and everybody's living like me. No, they're not.
No,
Stop.
I
It's
totally
like,
get that. If it's not in your reality and it's not in your vibrational frequency, it's not going to be on your radar. So I totally understand that. I think I have different food issues. Yeah, I don't know. I'll have to eventually get a grasp on that, but yeah. Food is a
I
hard
am a
one.
nutritionist, and I can help you. So
Yeah.
whenever you
No, I
want.
know. I've been working with that with my relationship with food for at
Uh
least
huh. Uh huh.
almost a decade now.
Sure.
Conscious,
Sure.
intention around it. But I'm gonna have to do some more work with this chapter, I think, and with its partner chapter, because I haven't read these ones personally yet. But
Yeah, and they're pretty good. I'm like,
yeah,
wow.
no, there's definitely so much sticking out to me. And I agree with the part about your spirit being hungry for creativity, because I think even our ideals around what creativity is and looks like for us it
Mhm.
is I don't want to say wrong, but it's an illusion.
Yeah.
Where I think we're just kind of taught, to see creativity like art museum stuff. And that's not the case at all. There's so many different beautiful ways to tap
Mm.
into our creativity, and it doesn't need to be connected to perfectionism.
No.
My inner creative artist that loves to paint looks like a 5-year-old in kindergarten. um, but I don't care. It helps me tap into my inner child at least. But there's
Mhm.
other creative outlets, especially with our business, that I've been able to
Mhm.
tap into and do, and that just feels so like nourishing, right? That feeling that you're looking for, I think, with food when you're putting something into your body to kind of fill you up. So I like that. I definitely understand and agree with that aspect.
Yeah, it is good, and it does get to the creativity piece, so that's cool,
Mm.
like,
Yeah,
in this, right?
yeah,
And so which is true, and that's what we need to actually release. I think we haven't tapped into our creativity in a long time, and that's an issue.
right.
So, again, there's the repressive nature, and then there's the passive repressive, I'm sorry, and not passive, and reactive.
Mhm.
So, in the repressive nature of this particular gene key, the foundation is to be found in the repressive nature, the state of fear. So, fear
Mhm.
lies in the deep, is deeper, lies even deeper than anger. which lies at the source of reactive nature. When fear is expressed, it becomes anger. However, when fear is not expressed, it traps us.
Mm-hmm.
All repression is rooted in being trapped. So, the most perfect trap is the one that we are unaware of, and that is the case of the 39 shadow. What is really trapped is our unlimited reservoir of life force and creativity.
Yeah.
The majority of humanity is in fact trapped by the lowest frequency of the 69 gene key. It it is fear that keeps us asleep. Those in the 39 shadow in their nature are the ones whose life energy is often most frozen, locked in habitual emotional patterns. Their awesome human potential lies completely inert as though asleep. This is why human awakening can
Yep.
be such a powerful event, because as we awaken, our life force is released and our latent creativity is
Mm,
born. And it's
absolutely.
cool because it does, yeah, as the creativity is born, it does go into the genius stuff and saying,
Right.
like, we're all geniuses. We just cut it off because we're trapped, right?
Right.
And then the reactive nature is to provocate, and that's the first stage of awakening is in fact anger. It takes
Mhm.
the energy of anger to crack the layers and layers of inertia and repressed fear. So as we begin to feel our fear, it transforms into anger and we begin to act out and project it onto others. This energy of provocation, it is actually fear made dynamic, but there is not freedom within it, and they're still trapped by our anger and our need to externalize our fear through causing others pain. So
Yeah.
this is why we see that people who are provocative or provocate by nature are usually unconscious of the fact. By provoking others, they simply heaping misery back on themselves. Such people are really seeking love at a deeper level, but are doing so through negative attention, which is abusive.
Yep.
And most human beings are caught by the lower frequencies of the 39 key, witnessed by every time we speak words whose underlying intention is to cause pain to another.
It's so crazy. Like just reading that, I can see like at least two two
Yeah.
massive situations in my life.
Hmm.
Where that's exactly those people. And to me, I still like I'm repressive nature is definitely like feminine energy. I definitely feel my programming is so much through the repressive nature.
Hmm.
And then the
Hmm.
opposite, right? In the other people being much more the reactive nature to like
Hmm.
mirror that and to get the healing to happen, to get the, to wake up to the awareness of like how we're internally programmed so that we can shift and transcend ourselves because we can't do anything for them. That's on their own journey. But
Sure.
yeah, it's just such a reactive masculine kind of energy in itself, and it explains why I think even men, it's like the only emotion where it's like comfortable to express and it's okay is anger and aggression. Because God
Hmm.
forbid they cry and be sensitive, right? Because that's a whole wormhole of other things. um
Sure.
but yeah, just I don't know. It's
Yeah.
crazy.
It is crazy, huh? It's a good, I mean, this key is really awesome.
Mm,
Um, and then the 39 or the gift, dynamism. It's the pressure of creativity, which is what we're talking about. You activate higher frequencies in this gene key. You begin to have a notion of the nature of the energy that drives all children. As we know, children seem to have endless energy, just crackles in the air around them. So people are dumbfounded how children in every moment they are awake, right? They're constantly energy, energy, energy. And it's funny because I think, for myself, I have a lot of that. People are
mm,
like, how do you have so much energy? I'm like, it is this, and I know that this is where I'm at in terms of I'm at the gift. Obviously I'm not at the city yet, but the gift is that potential to tap into your inner child and your creativity
mhm.
and explore and all that. It says it is interesting to note how as you make the transition from child to adult, your personal and cultural conditioning gradually take you over.
Mhm.
and also your experience to decline in your natural dynamism. So by the age of 7 years old, most of your inherent patterns are already set in stone. And so they say that we need an enormous amount of space and time to play, and that's what play is dynamism exemplified, and that we were probably that was taken away from us when we were children, is
Right.
that ability to just play. And you see it now in education and school, and it's getting worse. Like, we had a lot of time to play. I remember when I was in school, we had all these recesses and whatever else. But now that you see the Western schools and how they've done it, like, I remember I was substitute teaching at one point too. I know you do now, but they got like I think one time to play outside, and then they were like behind the desk doing work the whole time.
Yeah. Yeah,
And
it's
I
like
was
maybe
like,
20 minutes around lunch.
"Oh my god." And all they wanted to do was go out and play. And I felt so bad because they felt trapped. It goes back to feeling that like you're
Mm,
trapped, like you can't,
mhm.
you know what I mean? It's like, why would you trap a child
Right.
and not let them play? Like, that's
Mhm.
their nature. That's naturally. And also that is what as you read further, that's what expresses genius, because we all have genius in us.
Right.
Um, but we are not able to tap into that because we're kind of put in this, like, we're pigeonholed into something. We're like, no, you've got to be doing math and science and this and that. I'm not saying it's not important. I'm just saying that our natural genius will emerge through our creativity and
Right.
innovation. Um,
That's where those
so it
bigger
does talk
systems
about,
know that and just wanna keep
yep,
us trapped
yep,
for
of course,
consumerism.
yeah. And it says, like, of course, children need, boundaries or whatever. Um, but within the first 7 years, it's natural, it's unstructured. We need it to be unstructured and uninterrupted, but that's not the case anymore.
Mhm.
So, one of the reasons for modern society instance on early learning is misunderstanding of the difference between knowledge and genius. And there is a collective belief that genius is something of a freak occurrence, that is somehow not the norm. There's also a collective belief that genius has to do with knowledge rather than intelligence. But true
Mm.
intelligence has nothing to do with the mind. Even though it can manifest through the mind, genius is simply the fruit of a natural intelligence that has not yet been interfered with. Whereas knowledge can be forced, genius needs to be given a great deal of time and space to develop organically. Um, so that makes sense, right? Because if you think about it with play, it's like there's endless possibilities when you're playing and you have that space to do so. The imagination, and that's how new things, if you even look at people, quote unquote, that are geniuses, they just had a very high imagination. They thought they saw the world through this imagination, and they brought it to life.
Right.
Um, and so, we can still do that, and it can still be tapped into as adults. Um, it's not to say that it's lost. It's just, how are you going to allow yourself to go into that play and to allow yourself to tap into that imagination again? Um, so that's what they said. Good or bad upbringing, however your conditioning was, it can be reversed, it says.
Mhm.
Deconditioning usually involves a journey of awakening in which you have to rise your own frequency back to the original state.
Yep.
Your natural dynamism returns as creativity. The same energy that is the play of a young child matures into creativity and genius in adult. So sometimes you'll see a psychotic break of people. This is, like, I think, another thing where you see people go through psychotic breaks, and then all of a sudden they're like doing all this creative stuff, and then people are like, "Whoa, they're just a genius," and they cracked the code. They just literally allow themselves to tap into that, dynamism, and to start creating,
Mhm.
and their childlike innocence. But I mean, if you think about it, that's what kinda happens when you break. You have nothing left but that innocence, or whatever's there, right, when you crack open,
Right.
um, the
So
spark of genius.
important to deal with the like, unwiring all of the conditioning that happened to you. Yeah, I can definitely see, oh my gosh, day in and day out, I spent so much intentional time doing that. It's like, okay, what's next? All right, let's work through it. What's next? Let's work through it. I mean, and then it's true, you definitely do find this authentic part of yourself. And even in those stages, it's like, who am I? Right? Like you have this like
Mhm.
no sense of identity
Yep.
because you don't even know who you are anymore when you take away all of the lies and all of the things that were forced upon you and the ways that you were, brought up to behave or whatever. So it can even in itself cause like a little bit of psychosis, I think, right?
Mhm.
If you're not
Mhm.
prepared and ready to handle that. Because yeah, creativity can be madness too as much. I think of Vincent van Gogh
Yeah.
who had the most crazy life story but created the most beautiful art. I mean,
Yeah.
look at his paintings that he made when he was in the asylum.
Yep.
So it's almost like your creativity is just mirroring and reflecting all of that internal state that you go through.
Yeah. And I think that happens as adults if we're not given the space to be, or if we're trapped, right? So it's like with
Right.
kids, those genius kids probably living a life where they can just have a lot of space to be and to play and to,
Mm,
cultivate that within themselves. If you're put into the system, it becomes a whole different thing because they're trying to
yeah.
basically cookie cutter. They just want the same person over and over, they don't,
Right.
and that's been their struggle because we're not. And I think we're at a
Right.
breaking point because it's been working, right? They've created the Ford Model 9 to 5. They have these structures in place. People go to work, but they don't want to. And it talks about
Right.
that. It says the way to break out is do what you love in life, which is exactly, and that's kind of scary.
Mm,
But if you do what you love, it says you will unleash your creative dynamism, and more creative than you are, the more energy becomes available to you.
yeah.
Um, and it's hard. So I know we're in a time where it's like, well, I just want to quit my job, but I gotta eat. So there's a lot of other things that come to it. But
Yeah, when I
um,
do readings for people on career, like that's so much in the collective that I've tried to help people like
yeah,
find guidance and answers for because
yeah,
they feel that it's that paradigm kind of shift where it's like I don't want to be part of this old system, but I don't know how to do something new and create and find. And then just reading this and listening to you, it's just like the freaking technology. I mean, I was
mhm,
going for a walk the other day and there was probably this like little 2-year-old being pushed in a stroller and it had like an iPad gadget on a
mhm.
walk in nature. And I was like, really? Like at what point are we gonna under recognize too like kids are just they're not getting imagination, they're not getting play, and like I know there's some good things about technology with hand-eye coordination and whatnot, all that I get it, but at the end of the day like that just leads to the obesity issues and because they're not being active and exercising their bodies. And then I think like the mind is just like sucked right in, um, that they're not playing and creating.
They were doing
And
fine with eye-hand coordination before technology.
right,
We
no,
are
I
doing
know.
just
It's
fine. You know what I mean? But that's what I'm saying. Because I like, well, it's good. But the reality is we were fine without it. You know what I mean? We were doing
right,
just fine. And so yeah, I agree with that. There's a lot that this next generation is facing. There's a lot of
right.
just pressures and stuff like that. And we'll see, if it cracks them or what's gonna happen with the human psyche and how it moves forward.
Mm.
But that's another thing that can keep you trapped, you know what I mean? I mean, eventually you're gonna get angry. I'm angry at Facebook. I'm angry at the stupid phone I have. You know what I mean? Like I get angry. I want to throw it away
Yeah.
and get rid of it because it does take so much of your time, which is why I was like, I delete this Facebook. Like if I'm not creating content, there's no reason for me to be on it. Why am I on it? Why am I scrolling? It's a trap of your creativity. You're wasting so much time when you could be doing something creative and productive and something that you love, and it's sucked the energy. So they've done really good, and that by they I don't, the forces that be have done really good at keeping us trapped. And
Mhm.
that's really what they're trapping us. They don't want us to be creative. They're like, no,
Right.
do what I tell you. follow what I tell you to do, and you do that, and that's that. And it's like, ooh, but we're right there at this like breaking point. So dryness can be contagious. Okay, whenever you seem to run out of Jenny. Okay, we already had that. Um, living or a person living out the 39 key unleashes a tidal wave of creative activity wherever they go. Um, Other aspects of the gifts is that it's knows no fear. So this
Mhm.
is true spirit. This is where it says this is the true spirit of the warrior.
Yeah, I can
And there
resonate
are
with that.
many grades. Yeah, there are many grades of warrior. There are those who simply fight unconsciously because they cannot help it. These are the people who cannot resist whatever it is that has provoked them into action. But there are higher types of warriors too. Those who are provoked by who are provoked, but who manage to control their direct their anger,
Mm.
because these people are operating out of a higher frequency of awareness. They will
Mhm.
defeat those who cannot control their anger. Beyond even this, at this acidic level, um, those are rare warriors who cannot be provoked at all. So there's
Mm.
the kind of the levels, the ones that are provoked, the ones who use their that energy and use it for good, and then those who cannot be provoked at all. They have seen the nature of reality. There are no individuals in the first place, which makes it impossible to play the game of conflict anymore.
Yeah.
So, and I see where I'm at. That's kind of like in the stages
Yep.
of the warrior, where I'm at kind of the second one where I redirect my anger into other things. And
Right.
that's kind of been my pattern since I was little. Like I knew how to kind of do that naturally. Um, I knew how to read, and that's why I've have all these accolades and have done all this stuff because that really honestly, when I think about it, I redirected all of that into yeah, into, okay, well, I'm going to create this and I'm going to create that. And really, what was I creating? Nothing that I really wanted to create. I mean, I created a lot of cool stuff, but the reality is, how true was it to who I am as an individual? So
Mm.
I know that I'm still in that phase. And haven't yet got to the next phase of what this has to offer, which is the city. So again, this is the gift right now. We're in the gift of the book. So
Yeah. The city, yeah, is a divine gift. I can resonate with that just this past year. And like, I'm not going to go into a lot of detail there. I think you definitely know how I was
mhm, mhm,
provoked, and it was a test, right, to kind of overcome
mhm.
it. And I think heal even more of that shadow, and embrace more into the gift. Um, because I wasn't going to sink to that level and do what was done to me. I went through the justice system and fought back, like a true warrior would, right? So,
Yeah. Yep. Yep.
yeah.
And that's and that so it's kind of like in that the gift, right? You're in the
Hmm.
gift. You're like, okay, let me
Yeah.
so yeah, because if you go to the city, it's really you're gonna understand that it's probably like I don't know, I'm getting to that breaking point where I almost feel like I'm moving towards that
Mm.
direction.
Mm.
But I'm not necessarily there just yet.
Yeah. Well, I
But
could
it
see
says
that being the third kind of half of life too, right? When we're more in our
mhm,
like crone phase, and we
yep.
have all that divine wisdom, and we're like, just trying to end our legacy before we die.
Yeah, and that's part of it. It's like you have no legacy in the last one, which is like you just don't
Yeah.
even and I'm getting
Yeah.
to that point in so many ways, but in conclusion, we can see that the gift of this level of frequency, the same energy that gives rise to violence becomes creative action. I've
Mm.
understood this for so long. The provocate energy of the gene key is no longer used in reaction, but is now used in the service of provoking creativity and freedom for others, which I
Mhm.
love that. That's
Yeah.
beautiful. Like that's why we're doing this podcast, right?
Right.
Gifts is not afraid of hurting. It so just so you know, and this is a lot of the energy too, of the warrior. The energy of the 39 gifts not afraid of hurting another person's feeling if it means breaking them out of the lower frequency energy patterns. The pressure of dynamism cannot help but create more dynamism. The real essence is thus to touch other person's spirit in a way that helps them break out of their own trap and into higher levels of freedom and energy.
Mm.
Um, so yeah, and it's funny. I was talking to my sister about this last night, and I was like, "Oh my god!" As many times as I've pissed people off, And it's for a purpose. You know what I
Right.
mean? It's not even because, I don't
Mm.
love him, it's because I do. And
Right.
then I'm like, "It's gonna piss you off. You're not gonna like what I have to
Right.
say. You're not gonna like this and that and the other." But what is it? It's so that you could break free of your own suffering, right?
Right.
Like, and find your own freedom. You know, you've experienced it, huh?
Oh, absolutely. And that's why I feel like with the throat chakra, when I talk to people about, working with their chakras and healing, especially when they've been shut down and closed off, right? That repressive nature. Um, it's not about saying things to intentionally lash out and hurt people, right? But it's more in a healthy way. It's about speaking your truth and just
Mhm.
standing up for yourself and speaking what's right for you. And that is going to maybe piss off people or hurt their feelings. But that, again, is that mirroring that needs to happen so that they can look and see why they're feeling that this stuff come up, these triggers and whatnot that are coming up, and how it resonates with them. It's for their own journey. So I feel
Yep.
like that is a huge kind of difference in how we choose to treat people and talk, when you're standing firm in your own boundaries and you're not trying to attack and hurt them.
Yep, and if we could give space for people to do that, I think
Yeah.
people would break out. But, the natural thing is I wanna, fight back, and the biggest scenario I always talk about is, like, in the parking lot,
Oh
literally.
yeah.
Yeah, I've told you this one was, and I might have said it on here before, but, at one point, I was backing out of a parking spot to let somebody in, and I don't know if this guy just didn't think I was moving fast enough for him to get in the parking spot or what his deal was. I wasn't taking his parking spot, so I back out, and then I'm, like, gonna leave, and he's like, "Something, something," and he called me the B word and honked at me, and I'm like, "Bro, what do you like, what's going on?" And so he gets out his car, and he's just angry and mad, and he's like, and I said, "I hope you have a good day, sir." And he's like, "What did you say, B?" And he, like, came up to my car like he's gonna hit me, and
It's
I said,
crazy.
"I hope that you have a better day." And he
Mm,
just, like, put his head down, and he put his head down, and he walked, and he was like, "Oh, crap." Like, he understood instantly. Like,
yeah.
there was no need for me to fight. What
Right.
was I gonna fight about? I had nothing to fight him for, but typically, and my niece was with me, she wanted to fight him, and I kept
Right.
telling her no, and that was a learning lesson, I feel like, for her and me together, where I told her, because, she just said he needed an ass whipping. That's what she said. I was like, "No, that's not what needed to happen. This
Right.
individual is looking for love, and he's used to having aggression meet aggression, and that's
Hmm.
what he knows." And so you can diffuse an entire situation by the way you react to the individual, but it takes a warrior to be able to look at somebody who's attacking you in the face and be like, "I hope you're okay."
Yeah.
And that is not easy. That takes a
Mm,
lot of work, right? But what it does is it diffuses the entire situation, because most people they kind of feel like an asshole after that. They're just like, "Oh god, why am I fighting someone who's not wanting to fight?" Like, and eventually they just and things calm down.
mm,
So, um, we get into the last, which is liberation, which is the city, and that's like the transcendence. And that's why this one is called the tension of transcendence, which is nice. So we get into this gift. You begin. So what happens is your energy hits the highest planes of frequency. This is the point where the gift suddenly makes a quantum leap into the city and blossom and becomes a fruit. So
mm,
liberation is what it is when it finally forgets itself entirely. As high this key, so the 39 gene key is highly individualistic, and it has to be in order to be taken in by the status quo. Unique creativity has to break out of the conditioned patterns in order to rise to the heights of genius. The ring of seeking provides the pressure that drives human beings to eventually transcend themselves, which is really kind of cool. um So it says that the genetic pressure breaks through the higher dimensions. Consciousness moves back into totality, which means that it has to give up its greatest gift, which is individual freedom. So there is a great irony here. Only liberation of being, right? So giving up the illusion of individual freedom, can you receive the greater gift, the liberation of being? Few people are able to make this transition from creative genius to divinity, because you must give up the very thing that appears to feel your creativity, your individuality. To the genius, the giving up of one's individuality seems akin to death. But in order to attain the Siddhic state, you must pass through the gift level of consciousness and give up your seeking, which is hard. So I'm still not there. This means that with everyone, you will have to give up your hard earned gift in all its glory in order to make the leap to the final level. So basically, you sort of just be, you surrender. You're not searching for answers. You already know, and you're just existing. And that is like rare and hard, because we are naturally seekers.
Yeah.
That's what we do.
Right.
I mean, I still am. I'm getting my PhD. Part of that's the seeking piece, you know what I'm saying? So so for
Yeah.
those out there that are just, seekers and creativity, it's not a bad thing. It's a good thing. We need more people who are creative and breaking through, but I would say to get to that final stage. And I don't know that it's going to be when I'm old. Who knows? I mean, I'm getting to the point where I almost feel like that's what's necessary for my life, is to
Mm.
kind of just walk away from everything and just be,
Yeah.
which the liberation, which is like, I don't know, what does that mean? Go to a monastery? I don't know. But I have
Mm.
those thoughts, you know what I mean? Those thoughts have always been with me since I was a child.
Yeah.
And I'm like, is that what I'm being called to do? So, and that might be later in life, but I don't know. We'll see. Like it says, it hits you and you'll know, because liberation is the strangest phenomena. It is perceived by an unliberated as an experience, even though it is not an experience. Even though liberation is often described as an event, it's not an event. It appears to happen within time, but it does not. It occurs outside of time. There is no
Mm.
sound, and no vibrational frequency could resonate with the phenomena.
Mhm.
No words describe liberation because there is no process to describe it. It is
Mm.
perhaps best understood as analogous to dying. Um, so it says liberation is beautifully represented through the metaphor of the warrior's death. The warrior's life is one of preparation, adversity, energy, and finally death. The perfect death for the warrior is to die in battle. So the warrior, uh, to die in battle, all of this metaphors for something that exists on a much higher level than we generally realize. Of course, the warrior is you, the independent human being. Your battlefield is the world, and the war is life. The
Mm.
true warrior is the one who is willing to die for the highest cause, whether that is represented by your country, your cause, your brothers, your sisters, or your children.
Yeah.
The important part of the metaphor is that the warrior has to give their life to another, just as Christ died, for humanity upon the cross. As in all the great legends and stories, there's always a rebirth that takes place after the warrior has given his life for the higher cause. This rebirth is liberation, and it occurs only after a great effort of many trials. The reward is annihilation of fear through death of the smaller self, which is that
Mhm.
ego death that we talk
Yep.
about all the time.
Yeah.
This is the true meaning and symbolism of the warrior and why we aspire to it.
Mhm.
It sounds similar to freedom, but there are differences. Freedom, if you wanted to read that key or you buy the book, the freedom represents a 55th gene key. So that's a little different. And you can read all that if you want the 55th gene key. Between the 50 and 39 key. At the acidic level, the resonance of each word is precise and specific. Liberation is a uh, provocate energy. It tests and challenges those who are drawn to it. The person manifesting the city of liberation is profoundly dangerous to be around, not in the sense of physical danger, but in the sense of the shadow patterns. This is not a person that treads lightly around you. This is a force that bores right to the heart of the lower frequency patterns and strips you down to the bones of your true being.
Mm,
Sounds just like me. These are the teachers who direct the force of their love right at the weakest chink in their armor.
mm,
Just as the lower frequency of the gene key pushes your buttons out of reaction, the sage displaying the 39 Siddhis will use a technique at their disposal to test the limits of your surrender. If you take anything personally, they then you still have limits to surrender. So this is like a person who it's like a sage who just sits there and they're unbothered by anything because they realize there's no battle to be battled.
right.
um, they realize there's nothing, and I understand this all too well. It's just crazy. Like I won't battle.
Mm,
There's nothing to battle. So it just depends. Like, and that's where you're at this crossroads, right? And you're gonna know it because if someone can get you emotionally and trigger you, you still have work there.
right.
And when you're able to step aside and regulate and realize that there is no conflict and that there is no battle and there's nothing to fight, but then that'll trigger the shit out of other people too,
Absolutely, because
because
they want that fight.
they want the fight. They want the fight.
Yeah.
And so it's really it's a crazy experience.
Mm,
Like I experience like I am the warrior. I know that through and through. It's crazy to me, but I'm just like, so think about that in your own life, right? Um, and think about individuals in your life who trigger you but don't get triggered, but what they're saying is true. And it's
yeah.
really for your own benefit. It's not because they want to hurt you, it's because they know that you have this potential that's so deep inside and they're trying to get you to realize your deepest true potential.
Yeah.
And those people trigger and that's basically been my life. I'm like,
Mm,
why are people mad at me? I see all the greatness in them. I'm not mad at them. Like I am not trying to be an asshole. I'm just saying you have this ability. I don't understand. So
right.
it's an interesting thing. So the same way in which let's see, the 39 key is related to 55 gene key in the same way in which spring mechanism releases an explosive energy. When all human seeking has exhausted itself, a great need to act arises. And the pressure is currently building within the human DNA. Life itself is struggling to transcend, it's struggling through the human beings. The 39 shadow builds tension for change until it is released through the human genome city of liberation, even before the maturation of the 55 gene key. Therefore, we will hear the dynamic explosion of energy which provokes the maturation itself. Thus, we will see how the energy of liberation ultimately provokes the realization of freedom.
Mm. I would say
Yeah.
for me, like liberation has definitely been a theme over the years where
Mhm,
the more, like you said, the ego death happened, the more I felt
mhm,
liberated from those aspects of me, from those situations and whatnot. Um, and liberation just feels amazing when you can just let go and just surrender and just be.
mhm.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
definitely, yeah, I
So
like
yeah.
that.
And so when we get to this final stage of liberation, we let go of everything.
Mm,
Like literally everything. That's how I see it. I see it like walking into the monastery and being like, I'm here.
right. Just calm and peace internally,
Yep.
externally.
Yep. Yep. But we still trigger those around can still trigger those people
Oh yeah.
around us. And because we're able to see that conflict is not supporting their creativity. It's hindering their ability to be creative, to step into their creativity, to move into their
Mhm,
dynamism, to be able to cultivate
mhm.
that within themselves.
Yeah, raise your
And it
vibration.
pisses people off. I mean, I
Yeah.
have pissed off a lot of people. And it's funny, it's like all these things, "You're so sweet, you're so this and that." I'm like, "Okay, work with me and see what happens." And then you're gonna be like, "I don't like you," but then you're like, "Thank you," because you found liberation in the truth. You have to face it, you know what I mean? It's like and people just are afraid to face it, I guess, in a lot of
Mm.
ways. So,
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's programmed in fear, so it makes
Absolutely.
sense. Free to face yourself.
Yep. So that was a lot of reading, a little bit of sharing our story. It's like over an hour now, so we should probably get off here. But thank you guys for sticking around. And for those of you, I would highly recommend getting the Gene Keys Embracing Your Highest Purpose, Richard Rudd. It's a really well written book. There's a lot of resources for the Gene Keys as well. It's really, really kind of cool
Mm,
what he's created. Honestly, I it's hard for me to be like, "Oh, I like this person or that person," but I think what he's done is really, a beautiful thing.
yeah.
And it's just an easy read. I mean, it's well written. I think that's what makes it nice. Like,
Right.
anyone can pick this up and read it. It
And there's a
and
lot of stuff out there, but about DNA on like the scientific level, but looking at the more like, right, what, how is DNA programmed through the spiritual kind of evolutionary process of
Mhm,
consciousness? That's what I
mhm,
really enjoy because it makes so much sense about why these situations happened, how I'm programmed. Like I said earlier, that repressive nature is truly my inner feminine, and whenever I see like one or two, here and there reactive ones, I'm like, okay, that's my little bit of my masculine, that was always kind of dormant and needed to be healed and brought on. So it's given me a better understanding of my own just human programming, and what
mhm.
I have to kind of face and transcend in this lifetime. So I think it's just, yeah, it's a pretty amazing kind of book for sure. That's just so different than kind of some of the things out there.
Yeah, I agree. I agree. So yeah, so go, I would say get your book. We're going to continue just some readings from this because I really like the book and it helps too. So I use it intuitively. I've been trying to read from the beginning through it, but also
Yeah,
just
same here.
sometimes when I'm like, "Oh, I'm stuck, I need something," and, you have tarot, you have cards, you have all this stuff, and, for some reason, when I open up the book here, I'm like, "Okay,"
Yeah,
and it hits perfectly.
right,
So I'm like, "Oh, yeah, that makes a lot of sense."
right,
So it's
exactly.
kind of yeah, because it gives you of, like, what's next? Like, how do you break through this, right? How do you move past this? Um, and how can you think past this? And then it also kind of minimizes that ego because you're like, "Okay."
Yeah, put you in your
The
place for
ego
sure.
the ego is just the shadow, right? I think the shadow's like all ego stuff where your ego's fighting, fighting, fighting. Then we get to the city where it's like soul, right? Complete soul, pure bliss, whatever. So, but there's that. So yeah, get the book. So um, we're done here. Um, again, you can follow us on Women of Consciousness. Go to our website. We're going to be having a women's retreat, a virtual retreat for those who are interested. It is for women. It's a women's circle, and we're doing goddess circles as well. So you're welcome to join us there as well. And I believe maybe some live videos will be coming soon.
Yeah,
So
I
just
can,
be on the lookout for that.
yeah.
So anything else, Pam?
No, just I would say purchase tickets on Eventbrite. Yeah,
Awesome.
yeah,
Have a good day.
yep. Have a good day. Thanks, Sally.